All right. Welcome to another episode of Connect and Politic. We're here with a special guest. Please introduce yourself by telling us your name, where you're currently located, and your favorite snack.
Nice. So Edwin White II, go by EJ for Junior. From New York, born in Columbia Hospital in Harlem, still live in Harlem. Spent most of my childhood up in Rockland, so for all the Spring Valley people, that's for y'all. Snacks. I am anything peanut butter. Anything with peanut butter in it, that's me.
So that includes you making like a P&J sandwich, or like
I'm gonna
crackers
I'm
and peanut
gonna
butter?
do you one better. I'm actually just a P. No, I'm just a PB. No J.
Oh wow.
I'm straight up, yeah. Peanut butter, dry bread.
Nice.
But no, yeah, like Butterfinger, Nutter Butter, all the high fructose ones, yeah.
Nice. Well, do you remember your favorite food as a child?
As a kid, not favorite. I was never a favorite. So it was pizza. It could have been cereal. It could have been. I'm a mood person. So like depending on what the situation was, that's what the favorite would be at the time.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite meal as an adult?
I have to go with the same answer. I gotta
Pizza
go with the
and
same
cereal?
answer. Yeah. No. Like it really depends. So it can be sushi. It can be brick oven pizza specifically. Uh, Ice cream cake by itself. um, very very basic. So when I think about favorite, I think about the things that make me happy when I have them,
Yeah.
and usually, yeah, sushi is like a midday having a movie marathon type of day, and sushi arrives, that type of thing. And brick oven pizza is just, you can't beat it.
Nice. And the pizza from any special place?
No, I sacrilege as a New Yorker. We happen not to have that much good pizza uptown, so I never got married to a spot. So if it's dollar pizza downtown, I'm okay with that. And brick oven pretty much anywhere, I'm okay with that too. Yeah.
What's your fondest memory from childhood?
That's a toughie, man. Like, yeah. So, okay, fond, let's say, there's fond memories around video games in general, such as handing you the controller to your mom to play, and then she does the thing where she does like this, like when she's playing and she's like trying to make it jump like that. Like those memories, I can remember like specific places where people were sitting, that kind of thing. Um, I remember learning to ride my bike in the Bronx down a hill, because everywhere in the Bronx is a hill, and could not stop and ran into a pit bull. And lucky enough, it was the nicest pit bull that existed in my childhood, because all the rest of them were not that jovial. And yeah, I ran into him literally in the rib cage. Like I just couldn't stop, and people were like, "Oh!" And I ran into him in the rib cage, and I'm like freaking out, and the dog couldn't be bothered.
Yeah.
Yeah, my stars. I don't. I would have to think about it. I would have to think about it.
No,
Because,
I mean those are great. Those two are great.
yeah.
What was your favorite video game growing up?
So when I really got into video games, it had to be later, and that would be Madden for sure. So Madden tournaments in middle school and high school, in college there were Madden tournaments, and before that had to be Nintendo's hard, because I was one of those kids that can only afford like 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
So I had like the stock game, so Duck Hunt and Mario, and then I had like one racing car game and one like like Tecmo Bowl type game, and that was it. Um, and then once like PlayStation 1 came out and I had like a job, then it was like Tomb Raider and Crash Bandicoot, and I wasn't a Sega kid, so no Sonic. I know that.
So do you miss anything about being a child?
Mostly the blissful ignorance. I think like I wish I knew as a kid all the things like when the adults like, oh, you know, you should stay a kid and you don't rush to grow up. And what they don't realize what they're saying is, oh, hey, don't do all the cool shit adults get to do, like do kid stuff. And you're like, I don't want to do kid stuff. I want to do all the cool stuff, like eat breakfast for dinner and like and stay up to whatever time you want, kind of thing, right? And then once you get to be an adult and you're staying up till 5 o'clock in the morning and it's terrible, you're like, why would anybody do this? And now when I'm in bed at 10 o'clock, it's the best. I'm like, it's the best day ever. The best day ever if I can get to bed before midnight. As a kid, the only thing I like, literally, if I could be a kid and understand that there was nothing to see here on this side, like there's nothing to see here, enjoy the bikes, enjoy like the video games, enjoy like the like homework was I wish I could do homework right now. You know, like basically getting paid to learn. Like people feed you to learn. It's amazing. Yeah, so I most parts of my life I enjoyed being a kid fully through high school. Like fully, yeah.
How do you think your childhood helped groom you into the person you are today?
Yeah, everything. It informed everything about who I decided I was in early adult life. It was all based off of the assumptions I made based off of, you know, the things I enjoyed, the things that I was drawn to as a kid. So I would say there are parts of my childhood that are still very present, like curiosity, like just interest in knowing. That's been around like literally since I was a kid. Sorry, the question was, what was the question? Like, was something that I enjoyed about?
No. Well, I mean that was before, but the last question was, how do you think your childhood helped groom you into the person you are today?
Okay, so I'd be remiss to not mention my parents. Both of my parents are differently abled. So my dad has limited vision. He was born essentially blind, legally blind, and my mom has a physical disability called cerebral palsy. So growing up, I had a different relation, I think, with adults, just because I had to help my parents a bunch. I got to be around people in each of those groups as well. So being around blind people from young kind of gives you a different perspective. Like, you know, for a fact that people see things differently, literally. And you know for a fact that there are different ways of being and different ways of I guess, engaging in life. And I would say mostly it's almost like if you go through some kind of struggle or any kind of tragedy, I would say younger kind of like shapes who you are and your outlook in life. And I wouldn't say having differently able parents made me there's no trauma or anything like that associated with it, but there's a realization that your life is different based on like questions that people ask you, for example. So people would always ask, what's it like growing up with a dad who's blind? And it's one of those formative questions that I didn't understand for a long time. I was just like, What I did realize is my original answer, what I would always answer when I was, 9 and 10, was, I don't know, what's it like growing up with a dad who could see, right? And that's like the natural child answer to that, but it's actually the most true answer. It's like, stuff is stuff, so this stuff is like this stuff and that stuff is like that stuff. And, everything is, uh, you can see ways that people can survive in a lot of different type of environments. And I think it gives you empathy, if nothing else, which I hope I took into my adult life. I think some people would argue. Some people might disagree.
Yeah. And what would you say are some of the most important lessons you learned from your parents?
The folks, man. Like unconditional love, like the real kind, the kind that, like, I firmly believe that there's nothing that I could do that would lead to my parents not loving me. My parents could get upset. They could disagree with things I do or that I believe, but there's almost no circumstance that I can imagine that would lead my parents to not like love me. Like, you're well, I'm a person, but like, you're my son. I love you no matter what. That was something that I didn't realize was abnormal until I got to college, basically, where I saw different people's relationships with their parents, especially their fathers. And my dad still, he like tells me I love you every day. Like, we're huggers, we're like very caring people. And I think in this age range, I'm 35 now, and seeing people with kids and seeing how people can say whatever they want to a kid, but if they're not doing the thing, it doesn't matter. And what actually rubs off on the kid is this other stuff that maybe you as the adult haven't dealt with. And for my parents' part, I think they either had it already figured out, they didn't have to deal with anything. They already knew what this love was, their love for each other. And it's mostly fascinating as I progress through life and I continue to see adults in situations that, like, they just, like, seeing adults who don't love each other in front of kids, you know what I mean? And the effect that is going to have on them, because I see that same 7-year-old, I see them at 37, I see the issues that they deal with that are related directly to this. And I'm like, oh man, I'm so lucky. I think, the folks, for sure, unconditional love, and then the things that all come out of that, the empathy, having respect for others, respect for yourself, loving yourself, taking care of family, Yeah. I would say, so I've, over the past 10 years or so, become atheist, and my parents are very, very God-fearing. And that's like the one thing, up until the point where I flipped over, which was a long agnostic period. I would say my number one thing would be my love of God, because that's the conduit that they taught all of these lessons. And I don't think they realized that they already had it, because there are plenty of people in the church I grew up in and every church I've been to who don't have it. Like, it's in the book, but they don't have it. And my parents actually have it. And so I was lucky enough that in the home, it matched what was coming off the pulpit. So luckily for me, I got to to have it with or without the book, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your favorite things to do for self-care?
Self-care right now, so I meditate every day. I write every day. So I've been writing every day for over 2 years now. And it's mostly trash, but it's a practice that keeps me there. regardless of how I'm going to look back on it, I'm super fascinated with the way my mind works. And I, no matter how I feel about it, if I have any insecurities I'm working through, if I have any beliefs that I'm working through, I'm not afraid to put it down and to spend time with myself. And I'm hoping that that brings about some kind of transformation. But I might be living it. I don't know.
Mm. So the writing is all personal and is like journaling. So it's not
Yeah.
like creative. Okay.
So that's the thing. The practice is a habit. So sometimes the writing is creative. Sometimes the writing is political. Sometimes it's funny. It really depends. So like if I flip through my journals, I'd find comedy sketches. I'll find ideas for TV pilots. I'll find uh, stories about not being able to catch a cab. You know, that all the essentials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are some things you do for self-growth?
Self-growth, I would put both of those in that category as well. But I just got right back into running, which it's one of those things that it affects so many other things. So in order for me to run, I have to take care of myself a certain way at night. I have to wake up at a certain time. I have to drink a certain amount of water. I have to stretch. I have to take care of my body in certain ways that I can maybe slouch off if I'm only riding a couch, you know? So for growth, one of the linchpins have been writing and meditating. Those are things that help me form other habits. And running is one of those as well. And then for growth, I cannot stop learning. I listen to podcasts literally every day. I try to gravitate towards whatever interests me at the time so that the information can stick. And I pay attention to everything from politics to technology to health to, social justice, and anything that's a really big problem fascinates me because I know that there are very smart people in the world. And if there's a problem that still exists, it's fascinating to me that with all of the smarts that we have and with all the resources we have, that certain things are still a problem. And those are the ones I gravitate towards to figure out how deep it is, what are solutions, what can I be doing differently.
Mm-hmm.
As far as growth, I'm determined to learn every day until I'm under the ground.
So in your pursuit, how do you, or your, just day to day, how do you reduce distractions?
I go with the flow, man. So I roll into distractions. Depending on how much time I have. If I'm working on something very specific, then distractions have to be dealt with a certain way. But when over the past few months has been this kind of way where it's time for a change. And with that in mind, sometimes the distractions are healthy. And so instead of beating myself up about watching a TV show, I embrace the TV show, pay attention to what I find interesting about it, pay attention to what I find problematic about it so that I can develop my media perception and hone that. And I have enough hobbies that pretty much any distraction is useful for me. So if I get distracted by playing music, if I get distracted by designing something, my distractions tend not to be like Instagram spirals or that kind of thing. I'm very much a documentary, podcast, like those type of things, like listening to a podcast instead of doing some research I was gonna do, kind of thing. But then trying to forgive myself so that because beating myself up has been the hardest hurdle that I've had to cross in my 30s. Is just doing the self-care of forgiving myself, saying, hey, I know what your intention was. Keep that intention up unless it doesn't serve you anymore, and kind of be mindful and forever pay attention to every single time, like, is this something I actually want to be doing? Like, is this something that serves me? If it doesn't anymore, then maybe it's time to give it up. There are like reasons why you get distracted, you know?
Yeah. So, you said you write every day. If you were to write a book, what would it be about?
Right now, the one that I've had in mind for the longest is just telling my parents' story. I'm not remembering chocolate. There's a book that I read in maybe freshman or junior year or sophomore year that was an author talking about sharing stories about his life and his mom's life. And he would go chapter for chapter. So he would tell a story about his mom's childhood, then his childhood, then adolescence, then like this, and go back and forth. And there are parallels in my life and my parents' life. Like in their lives, there are parallels. And then there's also parallels in my life that I would find interesting seeing it like in that format. And their story is just interesting. I think that for the most part, still when people see them out, like if you see them at a restaurant or if you like see them at a grocery store, people are still kind of like, they don't know what to do with this. Like, where's your handler? Like they're really confused. So I've found that my parents, just by living, inspire people. And I would be interested in seeing, like in my pitch to a publisher, I'd be like, this is the inspiration that they provide for these people. Let me tell their story, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, what do you do in your professional life, and is it any different than what you imagine you do as a kid?
Yeah. So everything that I've done in my professional life, my first half of my professional life straight out of college was branding, marketing, licensing. So working at major corporations in Times Square, on 34th Street, these places, the big buildings on Madison, and just paper pushing, just answering emails. Definitely not what I thought as a kid. As a kid, I think I was architect. That was my one. It was going to be like either a comic book artist or architect, right? So something that I could use my hands, something I could be drawing something else, something I could be creative, designing something, building something. Those were my thing as a kid. And some of that stuck in my professional life. The issue there being corporate America is not that fun for a Black guy. And my second half of my professional career is the service industry, which I would never in a million years thought I'd be a bartender or a server. Like, that's not what I thought about. I'm not going to say that anybody shouldn't think about that, but it differs only because I didn't have a wide breadth. I didn't have a large amount of influences with regard to what I should be. And so once I got into NYU, it made sense to do something businessy. It was like, this costs a lot of money, so I need to do something that makes a lot of money. And that was the only thought process, which cut creativity completely out of the subject. I just didn't think of it that way. And I didn't re-embrace my creativity until I'll start working at restaurants basically and being around a whole bunch of artists. Which, yeah, I will say though, restaurants, I wish I knew that corporate America wasn't for me. And I'm saying this after having been at like 5 different major, like not like, oh, just, some working for some guy. No, like it was like HR departments and legal departments and marketing departments. And you had to like wait for your personal elevator and all this type of shit. And the mask that you have to wear is so heavy that it didn't occur to me how much energy it takes to code switch and to really just not be yourself, like at all times inside these confines. And so once I found my way to restaurants, I was relieved that people could be people. There's still some of the same bullshit, but you can be some like closer to the version of who you are in these type of establishments, which it makes a big difference just in comfort level and in the way you see yourself and your ability to freaking get up and do the thing every day, you know?
So I was writing down something you said, which may be the title of this, but I don't know yet. So just real quick about your experience in corporate America, and you said it was stifling, right? Essentially. So how did you how did you deal with that day to day, and what pushed you, or what was the straw that broke the camel's back to push you to make that change?
I almost feel like it's not even it's more like every straw breaks the camel's back from day one. Like first straw they lay on day one, it's on top of a pile of straws that happened when I was the only Black kid in every class at NYU, and when I was like applying to so many jobs, not getting any callbacks, and not being able to work at the proper internships because I couldn't work at the ones that didn't pay. And so once you get to your first job, you finally made it there, and you're only making $37,000, and you can't afford an apartment, so you still live with your mom, and you're commuting for 2 hours. The first time anybody says, "Oh wow, your shirt's really sweaty," after you've like bust ass from Port Authority because the bus like took too long to get through Lincoln Tunnel, and Christy, her name was, shout out to Christy. It's unfortunate. Okay, so like they didn't all have blonde hair and blue eyes. Christy definitely did, and she meant well. She was just but Christy lived on 60-something Street, and her commute was 17 minutes, right? And she got to wear a sundress and flip-flops, and I'm like busting ass with like a backpack, like going from Port Authority. Got to go through if you ever been in Port Authority during rush hour, that's the straw, dude. Like that's the straw that breaks every camp. It's like you just have to like crawl back and like make room for another straw for the next day. That's all it is. And I can point to several. One thing in particular, I was working at a place that I guess maybe I shouldn't name, whatever. And the way that corporate works, and this is not in general, I don't know if it works this way for everybody, but like the way the structure is like there's like a president, right? And then there's like a SVP, and then under that guy there's like a whole bunch of like directors, and then there's like a whole bunch of managers that are usually around the same number as the directors, and then there are like the coordinating people, like so all the people who do all the calendar stuff and mail all the stuff and that, right? Depending on how big your organization is, you might have a whole lot of people down here, or you might have like no people down here. And I was at a place where they were like, okay, what we're going to do, because when in management, what you do is you work there for a certain amount of years and then they just make you a manager. You don't like go to management school. You don't like learn how to be a good boss, or like, they're just like, oh, you filled out this paperwork for 5 years straight. You're a manager now. And so I'm working for these people. What they end up doing in this place is they move people up, but they don't replace anybody on the lower. So at a certain point, I was working for 3 different people. Wow. And which they, for whatever reason, did not communicate well. I didn't communicate well because I was a 24-year-old kid that didn't know Like, I don't know how to like handle managers and do all that kind of stuff. I'm just trying to like show up and do my stuff. And so there came a point where one of them was worse than the others. And she was so bad that the others didn't want to deal with her either. They were like, we're not dealing with your stuff. Like, if you have any issues with her, just you deal with it, right? So these are all white women, by the way. Again, none of them were blonde this time, okay? So it was like, there's just, but just so you know, and I, the interesting thing about working for women, most of my professional career, I work for women. They run the entire gambit. Like, there's the female boss who thinks that she has to be especially hard ass because she has to prove to like some guy who's a douchebag that she can do the job of being a douchebag. So she has to like do that, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's the other ones who are just like, I know everything there is to know about this. If you have any questions, if you need any mentorship, you come to me. They're thoughtful. There's empathy. There's literally like people. So I've had dude bosses like this as well. They run the gambit. There's no stereotype whatsoever. And in this particular case, these three women were very different, which also made it difficult to deal with. And what ended up happening was this one woman was concerned that when she came out of my office, I wasn't there this one time, keeping in mind that most of my job was walking to the other side of the office to a mailroom because I had to like mail stuff all the time. But never mind that. So I come back to an email saying, hey, you're often away. Like, what are you doing? So I'm like, oh, I'm doing this thing. They're like, it shouldn't take that long. She CCs the head of the HR department. Again, very big building, a lot of buttons on the elevator thing. There's 5 people copied on an email that tells me that every single time I leave my desk, I must email these 5 people, all white women. And I'm only saying that because that's not something I factored in. I was like, I'm the only black guy here. I'm the only black guy everywhere. The only other black guy in that situation was the guy working in the mailroom, which is also probably why I took a long time in the mailroom. It's like, fucking... talking to him, was like, man, please, yo, just those, because you need those, right? And so none of them saw a problem with asking me to email them every single time I left my desk. And so I'm me, so I reply like every time, and they're like, yeah, thank you, every time, no problem. So first time I was going to lunch, I told them exactly how long I'd be gone, when I'd be back, no problem. And then I tested it the next time, which was, I'm going to the bathroom. And what my thought was, there's a grown man emailing 5 people that he's using the bathroom. Mm-hmm. They're going to find this ridiculous. Right. Reply all from them, thanks for the update. That was, so that in that situation, that was the straw in that situation where like I actually like printed out a resignation letter, packed my stuff, and left the letter on like I came back the next day. So that was on a Thursday. On Fridays the next day, I'm coming in from Port Authority. The way that I have to get to this office, I have to walk from Port Authority on 42nd and 8th to like 32nd and 5th, because that's the only way I can get there is if I walk. And again, there's like all these people. I found myself so angry at the world at this moment that I was hoping, full wish, like I wish a motherfucker would, that shit. Mm-hmm. I was like, I want someone to come this close to me on this side. I'm gonna stand like as close to like the sidewalk as possible so that I can shoulder check someone into traffic, was my full thought. Like, and I, at the moment where the thought finished, it was like I was on 41st between 7th and 8th. At the moment that the thought finished, I was like, I quit. Holy shit, that's it. Like I had no plan. I had no money. I had no say. Like I can't. Yeah. Most times I like try to find another job first, but what I realized at that moment, it changed me, but beyond recognition of myself. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, no, this ain't It's not it. At that same job, so this is what, okay, so I'm telling you, every straw is a straw and the back is broke. I was there on November 4th, 2008, which is when Barry Obama got elected. And I walk into the office on Wednesday morning, crickets. The most monumental thing that you can ever imagine happening in American politics happened. In America, the most monumental thing that no one ever, you didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen. Nobody thought it was going to happen. That thing happened. And at 9:10, my boss is popping out of the office saying, are you ready for the 9:15 meeting? Nobody in the hallways talking. No. And it was weird because like I'm in New York, right? So I followed that up. So on that night, I was on 125th Street, which is like, so context and and contrast.
Yeah.
125th, they were delivering subway train cars by truck. I've never seen it in my life. And for whatever reason, this night they decided they were doing the oversized load, full New York City transit underground train cars on a truck bed going down 125th Street. Couldn't move because the streets were fully full.
Yep.
People on top of those. I'm looking around. Random old black women are hugging me like, oh my gosh, baby, you did it. Like, she doesn't know me. I'm looking at her like, you did it. Like, I didn't have to do no marches. I didn't have to sit on any parts of no buses. You did this. And she's just like, she was a woman like literally sitting at a bus stop, not going anywhere, just like, I can't believe it. And no fewer than 7 hours later, these people are like, so the 9:15 meeting about the I was like, oh shit. And it's a weird thing to like, I think now that moment would have been obvious to me, but at that moment, it didn't occur to me that there are so many people who probably voted for the other guy there, right? Mm-hmm. But B, that the contrast between the absolute jubilee, like absolute, like there's gonna be a holiday about this, to did you guys see there were mini bagels in the I was like, yo, yeah, that was, those are the signs. It was like, oh shit, I gotta go.
Yeah. No, those are some wild stories, man. So, a little switch. Is there something on your bucket list you want to learn or do?
I would say, I think I mentioned this on our call the other week. My main thing would be getting to as many places on this rock as possible. I find it's fine, but it's frustrating that none of us will ever get to explore any of the other planet systems or any of that shit. Like, we won't be able to get to Mars, but like, I would love to like see what life looks like on another planet. But the closest thing that we can do here, we don't even know how many species are on this rock still. You know what I mean? And being in as many different kinds of environments, just to like, just be one with as many of the people in our human history as possible, you know?
Yeah. Can you think of any advice that you would give your younger self?
To younger self, definitely the listening. I would, I think I still don't listen. The ability to ask questions, just ask questions, actually hear people, actually absorb someone else's experience, because it's invaluable. Like, it's invaluable.
What's the best advice you received about money?
About money? Like, the only thing that comes to mind is the old money don't grow on trees. And I would say that's the worst advice, actually, probably ever received. My relationship with money is directly tied to that advice. And it's a scarcity mentality that I've like struggled with my entire adult life at this point. Um, in line with more worse advice is student loans. Student loans being good debt, quote unquote, is horseshit and is something that I wish I didn't. Like I didn't really need to, and I did because my mentality was, I'm 17. I'm not going to be 17 forever. I'll be an adult one day, and adults have money, and that was like the way that that process worked. It was like completely ignorant, completely foolish,
Right.
and uh, I would say this. I would say most of the good advice that I've gotten on money, I couldn't tell you because it hasn't sunk. Like there are a bunch of ideas and things that work for other people, but as far as something that I could internalize and make my own, has not happened.
Yeah. What has been the toughest thing you've had to tackle, and what helped you get through it?
Uh I'm gonna say my journey towards unbelief. My journey from being like I was devout, like I was church 2-3 times a week, you know, in the choir. The school was in the church, and going from going from being absolutely sure that I would be in hell if I didn't like catch the Holy Ghost to the freedom of atheism was for me, it was like almost a decade. It's like a really long, something that whenever I talk to people who are raised without religion, I'm always so jealous because I'm like, you, you can't understand the going from the, you know, God's watching you do everything to God is made up. It's not. It's hard. It's really really hard. Because at any point, like up until the point where he's actually made up, he's real and he's thinking about you doubting him right now, and so all of the guilt and the um, reworking. I had to rework pretty much every core belief I had because every core belief was based in something in the Bible or something that the white guy that was teaching the black church, um, something that he said. And so the struggle I had of, I still haven't dealt with telling my parents. Like I kind of drop gems and I think they think I'm just gonna come back at some point, you know? And I haven't, I've done the work for myself and I haven't made the leap of evangelizing anyone. That's the beautiful thing about atheism. Like nobody's like guilt tripping you into like handing out leaflets. It's like you can kind of chill. But I think the that journey informed pretty much everything, all the foundational beliefs that I have right now about um, how people think, how hard it is to defeat magical thinking, and the way that magical thinking, like in God We Trust, is like in our courts. You have to swear on a Bible, like, and magically think if someone swears on a Bible, they're not gonna lie or something. I don't know, but like the way that religion is ingrained in like our laws, in our schools, in our culture, and and kind of really peeling all of that stuff apart is, for me, it's been similar to my understanding of race and racism, and the history of slavery in America. Like relearning all of that stuff has been foundational to how I like look at movies, how I have conversations, how I choose my friends, like everything.
Yeah. And so what helped you, get through it?
Um, constant questioning. I think I've always been analytical, and if something doesn't make sense, then there either has to be a reason why it doesn't, or you still haven't found the answer. There's like still something out there. So for me, it was peeling back a layer, like finding out. The Bible is just full of contradictions, and religion is full of contradictions. And the easiest way to see it is just like see how one person interprets God and how somebody else interprets God, and then you ask them like, so who's right, kind of thing, and you try to find those answers. And for me, peeling back the onion of how long humans have been around, how long the earth has been around, what the universe is, like all of these kind of things that fully don't jive. And once I broke down a few things, then it opened the door to be like, okay, I can now fully look into all of this. And it's interesting how hard it is while you're in it.
Yeah. All right. Time for a fun question. If you won the lottery tomorrow, what will you do?
Yeah, I wouldn't even do anything fun. If we're talking about just $1 million.
No, we're talking 300. Your take home would be 300 million.
Really? Yeah. Oh, okay. And that, well, I mean, obviously it's canceling all debt, blah, blah, blah. Fully setting up myself and at least one generation with property, investments, whatever things you need, so that nobody has to work for at least another generation or a couple. And the other thing would be just the world travel, like fully without having to have an income, immersing myself in a place for, at this rate, I would do like 2 months at a time, in one place, and just live there, just be there, learn the culture, learn the people. And yeah, I honestly would do pretty much nothing, but everywhere.
Yeah, that's nice. All right. Is there anyone you would like to thank or express your appreciation for that you haven't had the chance to yet?
Nice. Yeah. This one I was primed for. Yeah. Mostly because I don't think I had an opportunity to express to this individual whose name is Fatia Touré. And she's probably married now. She probably has a different name. But so Fatia, there was a moment when I was a freshman, and I was loudly talking about how Jewish people had it worse than Black people, and how Black people needed to stop complaining, and like slavery was a long time ago. It was most of those were full quotes when I was a freshman, and we're sitting in campus media, and the best part about this is the conversation wasn't with me. She was talking to somebody else, and I'm sitting there not minding my own business, like trying to do work, and I couldn't help but hear these Black people complaining about America, and I was like, I have to say something. And she was so upset. And it was, what's interesting is none of that, I didn't factor any of that stuff in for the 2 years that I didn't talk to her after this. But she was so upset. She was like, you have to know yourself. You clearly don't. And she didn't help me at all. She didn't feel sorry for me. She was upset. She was upset that I had the nerve to be not like to make her have to do that part of the work in that space. She's like, I came to this space so that I can just tell it like it is without having to do caveats and do all the fucking hugs and protect whiteness. And here you come, because I was socialized in racism like everybody else, and I wasn't taught American history like everybody else. And so I took all of that proud ignorance, which is a requirement for being American, and put it in her face. And she was like, oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 young man. And there was that moment. And 3 years later, fully 3 years later, once I was like fully immersed into my first Africana Studies course, once I finally like took one, within like the first reading we had, the first thing I was embarrassed. I was really, really embarrassed and sorry for myself. And because of my pride, I was never able to express any of this to her because I was still hurt. Like it was, I probably at that moment wish that she had treated me with kid gloves. Like once someone says something so overtly ignorant, you can kind of tell, oh, you're a toddler. Let me hand you the crayons and like point you away from the wall, right? Like you don't like freak out on the toddler because the toddler's just like, I'm having fun.
Right.
I don't know any better. And she expected more from me. That's really the part that I wish I understood that more at the time. I wish I understood that her vitriol was because she expected that I would have known better. And I just didn't have the tools. I literally didn't. And she didn't have the patience to teach me the tools, which I totally get. Like at this point, I'm like, I'm glad that I found my own way. And I'm happy because it's easily could have gone another way. I could be an investment banker right now and not worried about any of this stuff and be like, oh man, that crazy black lady, like she was clearly wrong because I'm rich now, right? And and I'm so happy that like, you know, it took a bunch of other things, like all the dominoes don't fall at once. Yeah. And the thing about that moment is that it was usually when I was being vocal and obtuse in whatever I felt about something, my ability to do it was such that it would take someone who's like really good at arguing to get me to see something a different way. So there was almost nobody who could just tell me like, oh no, this is wrong. So I would just say whatever the fuck I wanted. And this was one of the first times that both of those things happened where she was like, shut the fuck up. And the second thing is like really firmly sitting me down in my ignorance, which you have like, you can, I took it really, really personally at first, but then, you know, once I realized I was wrong, I learned as much as I could. Like everything I could. The most formative thing, I think the paper that made me really want to go and like apologize to Fatia was Ida B. Wells on lynching. She did like a paper where she would just document, and it was one of those things that kind of just made everything click into place. So for somebody whose ignorance was based on the, you know, Abraham Lincoln the hero, slavery's over, everything else is the black people's problems. And because no one teaches us black history until from then to like Martin Luther King, there's like, you're not really aware of all of the ways that the struggle happened and all of the violence and all of this. And putting that together was something that made me be like, oh shit, this is what she was so upset about. Oh no, I'm such an asshole. And I've thought about that moment like every year since. every year since. I think about it when I see people say ignorant things online. I think about it when I'm having a conversation with somebody and I can feel myself wanting to be upset, and remembering that that was me is so helpful. And for me, for what I plan on doing in the near future, which is like helping people in this in the learning process, trying to like shorten the learning curve when it comes to racial justice, is I was that person. I think anybody who's taught in America and that's your only experience of American history and how this whole thing works, you're in the same place as I was. And it's not a surprise and it's not your fault, I would say. The type of ignorance that you bring to this conversation, it's like very much by design. And the empathy that I hoped for at that moment, which I didn't deserve, I'm hoping that by being in both positions and seeing and witnessing my own transition, I can hopefully drop gems. I can hopefully, be some kind of guide and a gentle.
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I hope this reaches her, and so because I one of the reasons I even asked this question is because we tend to not give people their flowers
while they can smell them. Yeah, man.
And so we don't, we're constantly influenced and molded by the people we interact with, but we rarely have the opportunities to to thank them. So that's good.
Okay. So on that note, then I gotta say that's one because I was primed, but the other one I definitely gotta say is you via Marv, you via Marv and Jack, like that conduit. Like I could see when I talk to you, I could see certain things that is in the water, but the influences that I get from him and that I get from you they're everywhere in my life. And I know that if there are any wedding speeches or anything, nobody will let me forget it. So
that's why. All right, for our final question, how do you define success?
Struggle. Okay, so the lie. I'll tell you the lie, which is the one that I actually believe is when I have X and X number in my bank account, when I have X and X security, and I say X and X because I don't have those defined. The lie that I tell myself is when I have this undefined thing, that's when success. And it's a lie that I've been trying to unbelieve for like my entire adult life. Like once I realized, oh, it's not that. And what I believe the truth is just the experience. So if for me, I set the goal to be a writer. I said, okay, well, let me just write sometimes. And then eventually I was writing all the time. And for me, success is when I open the book and I write down one line. So sometimes I write 5 pages, but sometimes it's just one line. Success for me is sticking with the process, trusting the process, tweaking the process if need be, but just being a part of it and enjoying it. I think meditation really helps with that as well, just being present. And I'm still here. I'm still having this conversation. I'm still drinking this mezcal. So I do not want for anything. I have not wanted for anything almost ever in my life. I've never gone without food. I've never gone without lodging. I've never gone without love. And everything else, for me, I want my truth to be everything else is is just icing. And that's the, you know, like however I can enjoy myself and appreciate the time that I'm spending is okay with me.
Yeah. Perfect way to end. We connected, we politic, and we will definitely do this again in the near future. The title of this is going to be Success is Enjoying the Process.
No, trust the process, man. You gotta trust the process.
Yeah.
I was like, I know you, because you work out, so I know when you know, you're like, okay, you're gonna try to do this many, or you're gonna try to do it in this way, and for whatever reason, that's not it for you that day. But the process between day 1 and day 100 for you, and you're like, oh, good thing I stuck with this. Good thing I trusted the process. Yeah, man.
Yep. Thanks a bunch, man. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, man. I strongly appreciate you keeping me in the circle, man. And I appreciate you in my life, Mike.
Thanks.